Hello and welcome to part 2 of this Blender Room tutorial. My name is Eve, I'm a 3D artist and illustrator, and today I'll be guiding you through the process. In this part 2 of the video, we'll make the other half of the models. Okay, let's get started. This is how far we got in part 1 of the video. We'll be using this as a starting point today. First thing we're going to do is to make an open book model to put on top of the desk here. Okay, let's start. Press Shift A and add a cube. With the cube selected, press Shift H to hide everything but the cube. Now we can only focus on making the book. Press S and Z to flatten the cube a bit. After that, press S and Y and S and X to scale the cube into a rectangle shape like this. Now press Tab and go into edit mode. We'll add some edge loops to make the spine of the book. Press Ctrl R and add a loop down the middle. Then press Ctrl R again and add a loop on each side of the center loop. After that, press Ctrl R again and add 2 more loops on each side. You can scroll on the mouse to add extra loops. Next, double click and select these edges. Move them down with G and Z. After this, press Tab and go into object mode. Right-click the object and press Shade Smooth. That smooths the normals of our book. To fix the weird looking shading, select the object, go into Object Data Properties here, and from Normals, check Auto Smooth. That sets an angle of 30 degrees for our normals. Next, let's add another cube for the pages of the book. Press Shift A and add another cube. Scale it down with S like so. Then position it centered on the book cover with G. Next we want to add some edge loops to the pages as well. Press Tab and go into edit mode. Press Ctrl R and add one center loop here and then add a loop on each side of the center one. After that, press Ctrl R and scroll on your mouse to add some more loops on each side. Now let's make the pages curved. While in edit mode, press 2 to enter edge selection mode and then select these edges here. Press G and Z to move them up. Do the same for the edges next to them. Select them and press G and Z to move those up as well. Now let's move the normals of our book. Press Tab and go back into object mode. Right click and choose Shade Smooth. Then to fix the normal angle, go into Object Data Properties, Normals, and check Auto Smooth. Next, I'm just beveling these 2 edge loops to get a nice curve. To do that, press Tab and go into edit mode. Select both edge loops while holding down Shift and then press Ctrl B to bevel. Nice, now we have a nice smooth curve of the pages. I'm just adding some minor scale adjustments here. After you're done, press Alt H to unhide the rest of the objects. Then select the pages and shift select the book cover and press S to scale down the objects. Position the book on the desk with G. Next, let's add some papers to the desk. For that, we'll add some simple planes and scatter those around. Press Shift A and add a plane. Scale it down with S and position it with G. Press Shift D to make a copy of the plane and then scale it down to a rectangle to make what is going to be a post-it note. Before we continue, I want to give the biggest shout out to my patrons. Thanks to you, I can continue to grow this channel and continue making more videos for you guys. If you find my videos useful, make sure to check out my Patreon. I do exclusive 3D tutorials on there, and I also share exciting sneak peeks of my animation project, The Magical Adventures of Gizmo and Oz. And now back to the video. Next, let's make a candle. Press Shift A and add a cylinder. Right click and choose Shade Smooth to smooth the normal. Then from Object Data Properties again, in Normals, turn on Auto Smooth. Scale down the cylinder with S and then duplicate it by pressing Shift D. This will be the wick of the candle. Now let's shape the candle. Select the big cylinder and press Tab to go into Edit mode. Press Numpad 1 to go into front view and then turn on X-ray mode from up here or from this little icon here. X-ray mode allows you to select the vertices on the front and the back at the same time. Select the bottom vertices here. Move them down with G and Z. Scale them up slightly with S. After this, let's quickly make caps on the end of the cylinder so we don't have any n-gons. So let's remove this top n-gon here. To close off the caps here, press 3 to enter face selection mode. Select this end face here. Then press E to extrude it and S to scale it slightly. After that, press M and choose at center. That merges the new face at the center, and now instead of having an n-gon on the top, we have all the verts merging in the center. Do the exact same on the bottom. Next, press 2 and go into edge selection mode. Double click to select this edge loop down here. Press Ctrl B to bevel it. Double click to select the loop and then press Ctrl B to bevel it. Now exit X-ray mode and press Tab to go back into object mode. Here you can see that our candle is looking nice. Next, we want to add a little round cube to the wick to act as a flame. Press Shift A and add a round cube. Scale it down here and position it with G. Press Tab and go into edit mode. Turn on X-ray mode again, then select these bottom vertices. What we want to do is do a smooth scale on the bottom of the mesh. To turn on proportional editing, press O or press this icon here. Now when we scale these vertices, the area around them will also be affected. So that gives us a smooth transition of the scale. To increase or decrease the area of the proportional editing tool, use the scroll wheel on your mouse. I'm just scrolling down on the mouse to decrease the area it affects. Then I press S and scale up the bottom. After this, let's scale down the top of the wick. Select the top vertices and scale them down with S as well. Nice, now our little fire is done. Press Tab and go back into object mode and then turn off X-ray as well. Now let's add another object that will be the dish under the candle. Press Shift A and add a cylinder. Reduce the vertices of the cylinder to 16 from here and then leave cap fill type to n-gon. That will help us easily select the top and bottom faces. Now just press S and Z to scale down the cylinder in the Z axis. Right click and choose Shade Smooth. Then from Object Data Properties, Normals, turn on Auto Smooth to fix the normals. Next, press Tab and go into Edit mode. Press 3 to go into Face Selection. Select the top face here and then Shift select the bottom face. Then press I to insert the faces a little bit to make a rim. Then press I again to make another insert. Make this new insert the size of the base of the candle. With the faces still selected, press G and Z to move them both down. Nice, now let's close off these n-gons. Now let's make the edges of this dish look a bit sharper. To do that, press 2 to go into edge selection mode. Double click and select this top edge. Then hold down Shift and double click to select the bottom edge. Right click and choose Mark Sharp. That makes the normals here appear sharper. And we're all done with the candle. Let's scale down all the objects now. Press Tab and go back into object mode. Shift select all the candle objects and then scale them down with S. After positioning the candle, let's make a duplicate of it. With all the elements selected, press Shift D to duplicate them. We'll make this candle slightly different to add some variation. Just delete the little fire from up here, then scale down the candle and change the shape in edit mode to make it a bit slimmer. Nice, now we're done with the candles. Next I'm just taking the paper plane from the desk and pressing Shift D to duplicate it, and I'm just scattering it on the ground. Now it's time for the most witchy part of this room, the cauldron. Press Shift A and add a round cube. Click this little menu on the left here to expand the round cube settings. Change the arc of the cube to 6. Now we have more polygons to work with. After this, right click on the round cube and choose Shade Smooth to smooth it. Scale it down and position it at the base of the bed here. Now let's start making the cube into the cauldron shape. Press Tab and go into edit mode. Turn on X-ray from up here, then press 3 for face selection and select these top faces here. Press X and choose faces to delete the faces. Then press 2 for edge selection and double click on this edge here to select it. Press S, Z and 0 to flatten the edge in the Z axis. Do the same for the edge underneath it. Double click the edge, then S, Z and 0 to flatten it. Next, select the top edge here. Let's extrude it and scale it up. Press E to extrude and S to scale it up. After that, press 3 for face selection. Press A to select all the faces of the cauldron. Then right click and choose Extrude Along Normals. You can see now we have an inner and outer layer. Let's just fix up the lip shape of the cauldron to round it a bit more. Press Ctrl R and add a new edge loop here. With the new edge selected, press S to round the lip of the cauldron a bit more. After this, grab the inner edge and let's scale that up as well. Press S to scale. Now the inside is nice and smooth with no sharp edges. Let's make the potion inside the cauldron now. Select this edge loop here. Then press E to extrude it inwards. After that, press M and merge at center. Now we just want to separate these faces we made. Select all the faces and press P Selection to separate them into their own object. Now you can see the cauldron and the potion surface are separate meshes. Next, let's add some spheres to act as potion bubbles. Press Shift A and add a sphere. Right click it and choose Shade Smooth. Scale it down and position it here. Then duplicate the sphere around by pressing Shift D. I duplicate and scale the spheres up and down to make the different sized bubbles. After this, select the cauldron and press Tab to go into edit mode. Select the edges of the lip here and scale them up a bit to match the reference better. Now let's move the cauldron by adding a modifier. Go into modifiers and add a subdivision surface modifier. Let's just add another edge on the bottom here by pressing Ctrl R. That just hardens this bottom transition here. Next, let's make the handles. Press Shift A and add a torus. Reduce the number of segments from here. That reduces the polygons in the model. Then right click and choose Shade Smooth. Scale the torus down with S and position it on the cauldron with G. After you're happy with the positioning, press Shift D to duplicate the torus and move it to the other side here. Let's just rotate all these objects a bit. Shift select all the objects and press Tab to go into edit mode. Press A to select all the faces and then press R and Z to rotate everything around the Z axis. Next, let's make the rock platform that the cauldron will be sitting on, and after that we'll make the legs. Press Shift A and add a cylinder to make the platform. Scale it down in the Z axis by pressing S and Z. Move it under the cauldron with G. Position it so it doesn't clip anything. Now press Tab and go into edit mode. Press Free for face selection and then select this top face here. Press I to insert the face. Then press E and extrude the face downwards. Now press Tab and go into object mode. Let's hide everything but the cylinder to make it easier to work on this one object. Press Shift H to hide everything apart from the cylinder. After that, select the bottom face and press X to delete it. We don't need that face. Next, let's select all horizontal edges on the cylinder. Press 2 for edge selection and select all the edges by holding down Shift. With all of them selected, press Ctrl B to bevel them slightly. After this, press Free for face selection. Select all the faces while holding down Shift. Then right-click and choose Extrude Along Normals. Nice, now it's starting to look like rocks. Next, let's just merge everything at the center here so we don't have an n-gon. Select this face and press M at center to merge everything. After that, press 2 for edge selection and double-click to select this loop. Then press Ctrl B to bevel it like this. That makes it a bit nicer and more rounded. Let's do the same for this inner edge. Double click to select the edge loop and then press Ctrl B to bevel. Okay, that's looking good now. Now let's unhide all of our other objects. Press Alt H to unhide everything. Now let's add some simple cubes for the firewood. Press Shift A and add a cube. Flatten it down like this into a rectangular shape with S. And then position it down here with G. Then press Shift D and duplicate this plank a few times while rotating it and changing the position of it. Be careful here so the planks don't clip with each other or the cauldron. Next, let's make the cauldron leg. Press Shift A and add a cube. Scale it down with S. Now let's hide everything apart from the cube. Press Shift H to do that. Press S and X to scale the cube in the X-axis. Now press Tab and go into edit mode. We're going to shape this cube into the shape of the leg of the cauldron. Press Ctrl R to add an edge loop in the middle here. Press 3 for face selection and choose this face here. Press E to extrude the face down. Then press Ctrl R again and add another loop here. After that, select this face and press E to extrude it as well. Next, let's apply a bevel modifier to our object. Press Tab and go into object mode. With the object selected, press Ctrl A and choose All Transforms to apply the transforms. We do this so we don't get any weird bevel results. Now for modifiers, add the bevel modifier. Reduce the bevel amount and increase the bevel segments. After that, right-click the object and choose Shade Smooth. Here, I'm just making the bottom of the leg thinner in edit mode. Now we can place this leg on the cauldron. Press Alt H to unhide all the other objects. Press S to scale down the leg and G to position it on the cauldron. Then press R to rotate the leg around like in the reference. At this stage, to be completely honest, I forgot to duplicate the leg around, but to duplicate it around, you can press Shift D and then you can rotate the copies into place. Next, let's make a chair. Press Shift A and add a cube. Press Shift H to hide all the objects again, and then press S and Z to scale the cube in the Z axis. After that, press numpad 3 to go into side view. We'll duplicate this cube so it can be the backrest. Press Shift D to duplicate the cube. Press R, Y and 90 to rotate the cube 90 degrees. Position it up here. Then let's duplicate this cube one more time. Press Shift D to duplicate. Move that cube back here with G. Then press S and X to scale it and make it thinner. Move it to the side of the chair here and make sure it's flush to the backrest. Then press Tab to go into edit mode. Turn on X-ray from up here and grab the bottom vertices. Pull them up with G and Z. Nice, now we have one of the chair legs. Let's duplicate this object now. Press Tab and go back into object mode. Press Shift D to duplicate the leg and move it to the other side here. Here I'm just adjusting the shape of the cubes in edit mode to match the reference better. After this, go back into object mode. Press numpad 3 for side view. Select both the legs and then press Shift D to duplicate the objects. Move them to the front here. Then press Tab and go into edit mode. Grab the top vertices and move them down like this. Nice, now we have the base of our chair. Next, let's add the little decorative crystals that we have in the reference. For that, we'll use cones. Press Shift A and add a cone. In the Add Cone menu here, reduce the vertices to 6. Then scale the cone down with S and position it on one of the back legs here. Now we just want to delete the bottom face here. Press Tab and go into edit mode. Press 3 for face selection and select the bottom face. Press X and choose faces to delete it. Then press Tab and go back into object mode. Now we want to mirror this cone. As you can see, the pivot point of the object is up here, this little dot. That means the mirror operation will be based on where the pivot is currently. Let me show you what happens if we mirror the object now. When we add the mirror modifier now, and make it mirror on the Z-axis, the mirror won't give us the results we want. This is because of the pivot. So to get a good result, we need to move the pivot down to the bottom of the object so it mirrors around the center. Let's do that now. Press Ctrl and dot, which enables pivot edit mode. Now you can adjust the pivot of your object. Press G and Z to move the pivot in the Z-axis. We want to put it down here at the base. Now if you go into modifiers and add a mirror modifier and make it mirror in the Z-axis, you can see that our object is mirrored correctly. After you're happy with the gem, press Shift D to duplicate it and move it to the other side of the chair here. Nice, now our chair is looking good. Let's unhide everything and position the chair now. Press Alt-H to unhide all the other objects. Now Shift select all the objects that make up the chair. When I press S now, you can see the individual objects are scaling. This is because I have scale set to individual origins. To change it, go up here and change from individual origins to bounding box center. Now our object scales one whole. Scale and position the chair near the desk and then rotate it slightly with R. Next, let's make some magic scrolls. Press Shift A and add a cylinder. From this menu here, reduce the vertices to 16 so we have less sides. Then scale the cylinder with S and also scale it in the Z-axis by pressing S and Z. After that, right click and choose Shade Smooth. Then go into Object Data Properties, Normals, and turn on Auto Smooth. Now press Shift H to hide everything but the cylinder. Let's make this into a scroll shape now. Press Tab and go into Edit mode. Press Ctrl R and put one edge loop in the middle here. Then press Ctrl R again and add an edge loop on the top here and one on the bottom as well. After that, select the middle edge here and scale it with S. Then Shift select the edges on either side of the middle edge and scale those down with S as well. That makes the shape nice and tapered. After that, press 3 for face selection mode. Turn on X-ray and select these faces here. Right click and choose Extrude Along Normals. Scale the extrusion in the Z-axis a little bit. Now we want to extrude the top and bottom to close off the caps. Select the top face, then Shift select the bottom face and press I to insert the faces. After that, press E to extrude the top face here and move it down. Press E to extrude again and then M and choose at center to merge everything at the center. Now this area is nicely closed off and you don't have an end going up here. Do the same on the bottom. Select the face, then press E to extrude it. Move it inside the scroll like this. Then press E again to extrude and M at center. Now let's add a band to the middle of the scroll. Press 2 for edge selection and double click to select this edge here. Press Ctrl B to bevel it. With the new faces it created still selected, right click and choose Extrude Along Normals. Scale the selection in the Z-axis slightly with S and Z. Nice, now our scroll is done. Let's position it. Press Alt-H to unhide everything. Then press S to scale down the scroll and G to position it on the desk here. Use R to rotate it so it's laying on the book like this. Once you're done, press Shift D to duplicate the scroll and place it around here and rotate it differently like in the reference. Now I'm just quickly going back to the chair so I can bevel the individual parts. Before we bevel it though, we want to apply all transforms. Shift select all the chair objects and press Ctrl A. Choose all transforms. Now we can add our bevel modifiers. Select the seat and from modifiers, add a bevel modifier. Adjust the size and the segments. I add 2 segments to mine. Then add a bevel modifier to the backrest as well. Next, let's quickly make a rug. For that, I'm just adding a simple cube. Scale down the cube in the Z-axis to flatten it. Press S and Z to do that. Position it on the bottom of the desk while making sure it doesn't clip the floor, desk, or chair. Here I'm just moving the chair up a bit to get it out of the way. Next, let's make the shelves. For that, we'll use even more cubes. Press Shift A and add another cube. Scale it down into this shape and then position it on the wall with G. Once you're happy with the shelf, press Shift D to duplicate it. Position it up here like in the reference. Now let's bevel these. First select both and press Ctrl A and choose all transforms. Then in modifiers, add the bevel modifier to each. Adjust the amount and segments. After that, right click and choose Shade Smooth. In Object Data Properties, Normals, turn on Auto Smooth as well. Now I'm just duplicating one of the potions we made in part 1 of this video and I'm putting it on the shelf. I press Shift D to duplicate the potion and use G to move it. I'm also adjusting the shape of the potion bottle in edit mode to match the potion shape in the reference. I'm just adjusting the scale of the loops to make it slightly more rounded. Next, let's make the fortune telling orb. For that, we'll add a round cube, press Shift A and add the round cube. From this little menu here, set the radius to 1. Then right click and choose Shade Smooth. Scale the orb down with S and place it on the shelf with G. Now let's add the bottom part. Press Shift A and add a cylinder. From cap fill type, choose Triangle Fan. This will automatically close off the cap. Then in Object Mode, right click and choose Shade Smooth. Like before, in Object Data Properties, Normals, turn on Auto Smooth. Scale the cylinder down and position it below the orb on the shelf. After that, press Tab and go into Edit Mode. Turn on X-Ray and grab these bottom vertices here. Scale them up with S to flare out the shape a bit on the bottom. Then move them down with G and Z. Nice! All done now. Now press Tab and go back into Object Mode. Next up, let's quickly make a picture frame. For that, we'll use another trusty cube. If there's anything I want you to learn from the tutorial, it is that cubes are your best friend. Press Shift A and add a cube. Scale down the cube to flatten it a bit, and you want to make it into a rectangular shape. Then press Tab and go into Edit Mode. Press Free for face selection and select this front face. Press I to insert the face. Then press E to extrude it backwards. Now press Tab and go into Object Mode. Add yet another trusty cube. Scale it down and rotate it back here so it acts as the photo stand. After you're done with positioning the stand, shift select both objects, scale them both down with S and position them on the shelf with G. Okay, final stretch now. Press Shift A and add a cube. Press Shift H to hide everything but the cube. Then scale the cube into a rectangular shape with S and X. This will be the base of our chest. Now let's add a cylinder, which will be the chest lid. Press Shift A and add a cylinder. Rotate the cylinder in the X-axis by pressing R, X and typing in 90 on your keyboard. Now press Tab and go into edit mode. Press free for face selection. Turn on X-ray from up here and select the bottom half of the cylinder. Press X and choose faces to delete these bottom faces. Now scale and move the cylinder so it matches the size of the cube we created. After that, go back into object mode. Right click on the cylinder and choose Shade Smooth. From here, turn on Auto Smooth. Now let's add some loops to our cube. Select the cube and press Tab to go into edit mode. Press Ctrl R and start adding some edge loops like this. We want to make these edges on each corner so we can have a trim around the cube. After you're done adding your edges, press Tab and go back into object mode. We'll add some edges to the lid as well so we can add a little trim there too. Select the cylinder and press Tab to go into edit mode. Press Ctrl R and add edges here to match the ones on the cube. Add one edge on the front here and one on the back. Select those new edges and scale them out with S and Y to make the shape a bit nicer. Now we want to remove these side edges so we can add a trim to the side of the cylinder as well. Make sure you're in edge select mode by pressing 2. Then shift select all of these edges. After that, right click and choose Dissolve Edges. Now that's created and gone faces on either side of the cylinder. We want to select these. Press free for face selection and shift select the big faces on either side of the cylinder. Press I to insert the faces. Nice, now we can add a trim to the outside area. Time to select all the faces for the trim. Go back into object mode. Select the cube and then shift select the cylinder and press Tab to go into edit mode. Now you can edit both of the objects at the same time. Start shift selecting all of the outside faces on the cylinder for the trim. After you're done selecting them, right click and choose Extrude Along Normals. Drag your mouse out to extrude the faces. In the Extrude menu here, turn on Offset Even. That makes sure that all of your extruded faces have the same offset all around. Let's do the same for the cube. Shift select all the outside faces for the trim. Right click and choose Extrude Along Normals. Match the size to the trim on the lid. Also make sure to turn on Offset Even in the Extrude menu. Nice! Now let's add a little lock to the chest. Press Shift A and add another cube. After that, press Tab and go into edit mode. Press Ctrl R and add 2 edge loops like this. While still in edit mode, grab the individual vertices and adjust the shape like this. When you're happy with the shape, press Tab and go back into object mode. Right-click on the object and choose Shade Smooth to smooth the cube. Then turn on Auto Smooth again. And finally, let's add a bevel to the actual chest. First, Shift select all of the objects, press Ctrl A and apply all transforms. Then from modifiers, add the bevel modifier on the bottom first. Adjust the amount and segments. Then do the same on the lid. From modifiers, add the bevel modifier. Adjust the amount and segments again. Okay, all done with the chest now. Let's unhide everything. Press Alt-H to unhide all the other objects. Shift select all the chest objects and scale them down with S. Make sure that your scaling is set to bounding box center so all of your objects scale as one whole. Scale, rotate and position the chest on top of the bookcase here. Here I'm just scaling everything down a little bit to match the size of the objects in the reference better. It's window time. For the window hole, add a cylinder. Press Shift A to add the cylinder. In the cylinder menu, type in 4E in vertices. After that, right-click and choose Shade Smooth. In Object Data Properties, Normals, turn on Auto Smooth. Rotate the cylinder on the X-axis. Press R, X and type in 90 to do that. Scale the cylinder down and position it on the back wall. Press numpad 1 for front view. Front and side view can help you position the cylinder nicely. Now we want to boolean this cylinder shape out of the wall shape. First though, we need to apply all transforms to the wall so the boolean looks correct. Select a wall and press Ctrl A. Choose all transforms to apply the transforms. After this, select the wall and from modifiers, add the Boolean modifier. Next to where it says Object in the Boolean modifier, choose the eyedropper tool. With the eyedropper tool, click on the cylinder. Now we have a Boolean in the shape of the cylinder on the wall. If you press H to hide the cylinder, you can see that we have a nice circular hole here. To fix the normals on the wall, turn on Auto Smooth again from Object Data Properties, Normals. Next from modifiers, you want to apply the Boolean modifier. That actually makes the cut into the wall. So go here and from the tick mark, choose Apply. Now when you press Tab and go into Edit mode, you're able to adjust the vertices where the hole has been cut. Next, let's make the window frame. Press Shift A and add a cylinder. From the cylinder menu, for cap fill type, choose Nothing. Scale down the cylinder with S, then flattening a bit by pressing S and Z. Right-click and choose Shade Smooth. From Object Data Properties, Normals, turn on Auto Smooth. Rotate the object by pressing R, X and typing in 90. Then move the cylinder where the hole in the wall is. A handy thing you can do here is to turn on snapping from this magnet icon. From the drop down you can set it to face and that will snap your object to the closest face while you're moving the object. So you can position the cylinder on the wall quicker that way, it just kind of snaps it to it. After this we want to add thickness to the cylinder. Press Tab and go into Edit mode. Right click and extrude along normals. Make sure to turn on Offset Even from the extrude settings here. Nice, now we have the outer frame. Scale it with S and position it where the hole is. Press Ctrl A to apply all transforms to the object and then from modifiers, add a bevel modifier. For the other part of the frame, we'll just add simple cubes again. Press Shift A and add a cube, scale it down, position this rectangular shape on the window with G. Once you're happy with this new cube, duplicate it by pressing Shift D. Rotate the new cube by pressing R, Y and typing in 90. Adjust the spacing of the two cubes. I put one behind the other. Apply the transforms on the cubes by pressing Ctrl A and choosing all transforms. Now you can add a bevel modifier to your cubes. From modifiers, add a bevel modifier to each. Adjust the amount and segments to something you like. Next, let me show you how I made these plants. I won't be going into too much detail on this part because that could be a whole another tutorial on its own. However, I'll still tell you all the steps that you need to take to make the plants and show you all the important bits. Okay, so first let's make the pot. Add a cylinder, then in edit mode, press free for face selection. Choose this top face here. Press I to insert the face and then E to extrude it downwards. Then press 1 for vertice selection. Turn on X-ray and select the bottom vertices. Scale them down to make the pot tapered. Then place the pot on the shelf with G. Next, let's make the actual plant vine. Press Shift A and add a cube. Scale down the cube with S. If you press slash on the keyboard, that does the same thing that Shift H does, and it hides everything but the selected object. To exit this mode, you just press slash again. Anyway, now enter edit mode. Press free for face selection and choose this top face here. Click and hold down your mouse on the extrude tool here and choose extrude to cursor. This enables a different type of extrusion where you extrude to wherever you click with your mouse. You need to do this in front view though. Press numpad 1 for front view. Then start clicking to create a curved shape like this one. You want to make the shapes of each section as close to square as possible and avoid the long rectangles. After you're done with the shape, let's scale down the bottom area. Turn on proportional editing from here and select this bottom face here. Press S and scroll up on the mouse to increase the area the proportional editing affects. And move it up a bit with G and Z. Then right-click and choose Shade Smooth. Add and apply a subdivision modifier to the object as well. Next, let's add leaves to this vine. Press Shift A and add a round cube. Increase the radius of the round cube to 1 from here. Scale and flatten the cube like so. Then position it on the vine with G. After that, I just make a few duplicates of the same leaf and manually position them on the vine. I rotate and scale each to add some variety. This is a bit of a tedious process, but take your time with it. Once you're done with all the leaves, we want to join all these objects into one. Shift select all the individual objects and then press Ctrl J to join them. Now the vine is one whole object. You can easily scale it up and position it as one whole. Press slash again to see all the other objects. After this, press Shift D to duplicate the vine. Rotate it and position it at the front of the pot here. Then press Shift D to duplicate it again and rotate it to the other side of the pot. This one vine is clipping with the shelf, so I'm just going in and adjusting it with proportional editing turned on. Now it doesn't clip. Nice! Next I just duplicate the pot we made and place it on the bookshelf. We'll make a different plant here. I'll just show you the technique I used. Press Shift A and add a cube. Then add and apply a subdivision modifier to the cube to smooth it a bit. After that, in edit mode, adjust the shape to an elongated one like this. Then add another subdivision surface modifier to the cube. After this, we want to add a little stem. Press Shift A and add a cylinder. Scale down the cylinder and then elongate it on the Z-axis with S and Z. Go into edit mode and press Ctrl R and add a lot of vertical edge loops to the stem so we can bend it nicely later. Scale the top part of the stem with S and proportional editing turned on. Then apply the subdivision modifier to the leaf to smooth it and give us more polygons to work with. After that, in object mode, shift select both the leaf and the stem and press Ctrl J to join the objects. Now what you want to do to bend them is to go into edit mode. Then select the top vertices here, and with proportional editing still turned on, you can rotate them to create curvature on the leaf. This is essentially what I've done for each leaf on this plant. I won't be showing you how I've made each leaf one by one, but the technique is the one that I just mentioned. Finally, let's add some floorboards to our scene. Press Shift A and add a cube. Scale the cube down into a board shape with S. Position it on the front here with G. Then press Ctrl A and choose All Transforms to apply all transforms. Now we can add a bevel modifier to our object. Adjust the segments and the amount. Also, from Object Data Properties, Normals, turn on Auto Smooth on the object. Now we want to create an array of this board. The array creates a number of identical copies of the selected object. When you edit the source object, the arrayed copies will get changed as well. That will allow us to adjust the length of all the boards at the same time, which in turn will make it easier to match the length of the floor. Select the board, and from modifiers, add the array modifier. In count, put in 3. That makes 3 objects in total. Now press Tab and go into edit mode. Grab the end of the board here. When you press G and X now, all the board scale is changed at the same time. Match the length of the boards to the length of the floor. Now you want to go into object mode, then into the array modifier and click here to apply it. Now after you've applied it, each board is an independent copy. Select the boards now and press Shift D to duplicate them. Press Tab and go into edit mode. Now on the second row, let's change the board length a little bit to create some variation. Turn on X-ray and grab these vertices here. Move them with G and X. Then move these vertices to the side as well. Now we have a little gap on the end here. To close that off, we'll just add another board there. Press Tab and go into object mode. Select the second row of boards and press Shift D to duplicate them. Move the new copy with G and X. Put the boards close together like this. We just want to keep this board on the end here, and we'll delete the others. Select the new copy and press Tab to go into edit mode. Select one vertices on this board and then press L to select all the other linked vertices. Then select another vertex from this one and press L again to select all the other linked ones. Now press X and choose faces to delete the selected boards. Now we only have this one board left. Adjust its length in edit mode. Then press Tab and go back into object mode. Shift select the new board and the ones next to it and press Ctrl J to join them into one object. After that, shift select both rows of boards and then press Ctrl J again to join them. Now this is one whole object. From modifiers, add an array modifier. Set factor X to 0 and factor Y to 1. Then in count, type in 5. That makes 5 copies of the objects in the scene. After this, apply the array modifier from here. As you can see here, there are some boards clipping at the back. That's not an issue, we can just delete these back ones. Press Tab and go into edit mode. Select these back boards and press X faces to delete them. After that, I just go in and adjust the boards on the back here in edit mode just to make sure that they don't clip with the wall. Then make sure that Auto Smooth is turned on your board's object, and then right click and choose Shade Flat to make sure the shading is nice. I had shaded mine smooth, but we just want these to be flat. Finally, I just moved the pieces of paper on the floor a bit higher up so they're not below the boards. And with that, our room is complete. Big congratulations if you made it to the end. I'm very proud of you. That concludes the modeling segment of this tutorial. If you enjoyed the video and you found it useful, please leave a comment and a like so we can feed the YouTube algorithm gods. It really helps push my videos to new people who I hope I can help too. In part 3 of this video, which will be out in the coming months, I'll show you how to add materials, light, and render your scene. As always, a big thank you to my patrons. Because of you guys, I can continue making videos. If you enjoy my videos, please consider supporting me on Patreon, which allows me to keep making more and more content. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!